Welcome, welcome, welcome to the greatest topic ever. I don't know if I was hiding my sarcasm or irony. Let's wait for a few people. Cesar is the first one. I didn't know that Cesar was a Dylan fan. Maybe I should make up some rumors. Cesar. Maybe you know that Dylan was part of Soda Stereo back in 1962. Jeez. Welcome, Wyoming Dave. I think we got you. I think everything's working now. I can see everything, so that's good. It's the Monday. That's right. Groove Seeker on my side here. Let's see here. Let's look at some comments. Really?
Yeah.
Professionalism, right? I once saw, who was the guy who was the original host of The Daily Show? That's Craig Kilborn.
Craig Kilborn.
Craig Kilborn, do you remember him?
Of course.
Do you remember what he did like after The Daily Show? I think he had his own show, right? The Craig Kilborn
Yeah, he went
show?
ESPN Daily Show, and then he was in Craig Ferguson's spot.
Oh, yes. I went to see him. I think he had the late night spot, but actually it's filmed earlier. And he had such a big ego, whatever. Like they had to put out a big mirror for him. And then he was like getting his makeup done. And then he was like, kissing, blowing kisses at the mirror to himself and doing the Shooter McGavin,
Damn.
It's kind of wild. I don't know why. Why do I remember that? Like, I think that must have been 2003.
Damn. That's about the time.
When he was still popular. Yes, we got a shout out to Cesar for his 1990s videos. 92. He's trying to compete with our favorite Robert Fithen, right? With his 90s videos. Cesar, hold up, let's go back to this. Anytime you want to drag it out, you just do the Robert Fithen way. You just drag it out like part 1, part 2, part 3, and then just keep going, You could even talk about the worst 90s albums, right? Welcome, Mark. Yeah, he was. Welcome, Final Kicks, 86.
Final Kicks. Oh, there he is.
Oh man, did someone say hair? Welcome, Decoy Cards. What's this? Oh, jeez. Where is he now, right? That's the thing.
Rich.
Really?
And left. Yeah, I'm sure he made a killing.
Welcome, Chase Records here. Chase introduced me to this infamous Brazilian record, the one that's like super hard to get in Chase. Like, thanks to you, right? Your influence, I put that thing on my want list, and then that thing showed up on Discogs, and it was a tempting offer, and I could not resist. But one thing you got to know about Brazilians is that they like to haggle just as much as Americans. So if you play the game right, you could get that record for a fair price, and that's what I did. So between Chase and I think you know the record, Chase, that infamous Brazilian record.
Was it in Bill Fay price range?
Way less.
Oh, okay.
Way less.
Okay.
But still, like, that record, I don't know, because Chase played it to me. Well, he shared the link, and then I was like listening to it, and I was like, great. Another Brazilian record, another one like that I need to get. The keyword, the verb is need.
Need.
Right?
You need all the records.
I can't. So I don't know. We'll see. It's like,
my favorite conversations with you is, hey, do you have this record? And when you respond, I used to. And I go, oh.
usually that's the case, but I mean, some rare records I just do not own. They did not go there. Maybe I had the U.S. pressing, but not the U.K. That's usually the thing here. Oh, you see, he knows. He knows. Yeah, it's truly epic. I don't want to say too much about it, Chase. Like you and I know it. I usually don't talk about records that I don't have in my hands physically, but I want to say shout out to you for inspiring me, influencing me on that great record. Oh, look, we got Dom here.
Oh, Dom is in the house.
Welcome, Dom. I don't know if you're a big Dylan head. I've never. We're about to go there. So I like this comment. I used to is my sad story too. That's right, man. I think there's only a couple of things like I used to have that Eddie Hazel record. Like I used to see it for $1. I may have owned it twice. I do not. Like I sold it back in the day. Like now, the original goes for over 100, maybe 150, 200.
Yeah.
And like I bought that reissue, and I was like listening to it, but I was like kept on thinking like, man, I could have sworn it was in the collection, but.
Jason, I think you got a little static.
Man, I don't know. Let me see if I can try to refresh this. But that may be the hard bargain. All right, entertain for a bit, Groove Seeker. Let me try to refresh.
Oh, well. Not my first time rocking solo. Dom, I've got the record, a lot on the tracks mostly. That's where a lot of people stop. But I think that's a mistake. But I respect you stopping there if you're going to stop any place. Hey, Vinyl Dreamscape, what is going on? Yeah, Vinyl and Kicks Jason's got some scratchy audio. He'll be back in action in a moment. At least it's not a blackout. And I'm stuck here alone with Concert Buddy bailing me out. Should get started in a few people just piling in. We got a really good audience built up. Great topic tonight. Just checking the amount of people here. Awesome. Most recent pickup. Good question. I have it right here. I got this Alice Cooper Rhino Hi-Fi. I got a copy and had to get a replacement, so I got that. And then, what else did I get recently? Oh, I'm pretty psyched about this. I got the Kenny Burrell Art Blakey live release from Blue Note. Haven't even cracked it open yet. So those are my most recent two. Great question. What about you, Vinyl Dreamscape? I think I saw you post some Yoko albums earlier. Andy G, what's up? What's up, Andy G? Jason will be here in a moment. He's just fixing his mic. Yes, Cesar, I heard there was a blackout there too as well. I haven't seen any updates yet. I've been staying away from the news for obvious reasons the past several months. Welcome back.
Man, all right. Might as well get through this. I think a lot of people have now joined. We've got 20. That's a forum. That's a community.
Yes.
All right. Anytime you want to show any the comments, Groove Seeker, you do it. Let's go ahead. Let's start. Why do we do this? Why Dylan? Why are we going here?
Well, we're going here for a lot of reasons. I think that it's no secret this is my favorite artist and someone I love dearly. I know you have similar feelings about Bob. I think what's interesting about our Bob fandom is that it doesn't exactly duplicate one another's, but it certainly interlocks. There are pieces of the catalog that we both love, pieces of catalog you love that I don't, and I love that you don't. So that's always good for conversation. Dylan's been a mainstay for me since early teens, thanks to a high school English teacher. No surprise there. So
really,
yeah, this is a cool story. So obviously, you know the name Dylan when you're into music, and I kind of found him through Watchtower. Obviously, like, oh, who wrote this song? Through the Jimmy version. So I have this English teacher. I don't know if it was 9th or 10th grade. We read a short story, and she was always tying back lyrics to books and stories and stuff like that. And she played "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue," like to relate to this story about like a relationship, kind of like a stalker type situation. And I was like, what is this? And she's like, oh, this is Bob Dylan. And I'm like, the Watchtower guy? And she's like, yeah, I guess, but like you should really listen to him. So I went out and got like I think the essential Bob Dylan. So I'm walking around school with like a Discman on, listening to Bob Dylan. So there's another teacher I have, Mr. Marr, great guy, history teacher. Never talked to the kids. He was like cool, like you knew he was cool, but he was just like there to do his job. He's at the end of his road. And he like knocks my Discman like on my desk one day, like kind of saying like, what are you doing listening to music? And then he sees like the Dylan. He's like, you like Dylan? I'm like, yeah, I'm just kind of like learning about him. And he's like, I need to see you after class. I was like, okay. So it was like 7th period. So I had one more period, and I would wind up being like 15 minutes late to my next class because he was like, all right, here's the rundown. Here's where you're going to start. If you like this album, go here. If you like this album, go here. So that was kind of like my intro, like early teens, like freshman, sophomore year of high school, really getting into him. And then from there, it was just like a rocket ship. Never looked back.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
It's a much better story than me, you know. His records were just cheap at the flea market. So, I mean, you would never find this record that we're going to talk about today, but you would see the other ones, you know. Probably everything like starting at Freewheelin' all the way up to maybe Saved, maybe. I would never see the other ones like Down in the Grove. But yeah, everything in between would be less than 5. Look at Cesar just trying to... I mean, you brought this up too.
I did.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When I used to play open mic nights, like at these coffee houses in Cincinnati, Ohio, I would also cover Baby Blue. And if you know that song, that thing's got, I don't know what, six verses or something, I think. That's just crazy talk.
I need Dom, if you have time one day, you should shoot me some psych Bob Dylan covers. I would love that. Just when you thought you've heard it all.
Well, this one that the Vinyl Kicks is saying, the 13 Floors, that's a good one. Off Easter Everywhere, which is a good one.
Definitely heard that.
Supposedly, Vinyl Kicks, I believe they said that Dr. Doom is about writing Mr. Dylan. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
So, there you go. Sean here with his first Dylan record was Greatest Hits Volume 2. Yeah, that one has like that stuff that he did with Happy Traum, the stuff that came out, I think, with that era of like tail end of the Basement tapes, I think.
Yep.
Here we go. Good question. I mean, when Dylan needs the money.
Well, I don't, it's tough. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's next. Is it because they just did Time Out of Mind? Maybe it's something from Love and Theft. Maybe there's outtakes from that. I know there's B-sides floating
he's
around.
already done that era, I think.
Did he? No. Oh no, he did. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a bootleg series of the 3 crooner albums.
Oh hell no! Do you know I saw that record at the Half Price Books, and it's called Triplicate, and I was like holding it in my hand. I was like, I guess anytime I want to fall asleep quick, other than watching, some BC videos, like I'll just
come on, you watch your mouth. There's Triplicate, Fallen Angels, and I forgot what the other one is of all the Sinatra, all the Sinatra covers. Those are great, man. Are you kidding me? See, this is what I'm talking about. We both love them, but there is pieces of the catalog that
I know.
that get slipped.
let's just go deep here. Like, I'm not joking about that I like Bob Dylan. If you can see this
Yes.
photo here, like, I am not joking. Like, I own these bootleg series, you know? Like, I'm that crazy, you know? But I don't have that live record. I never bought that stuff. That's just going too far. Dom is saying Chocolate Watch Band. It's a good one.
I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to Rojas, but same with me. And then I got them all on CD. Kind of getting glare. Yeah, I have them all the CDs. I'm down with Bob too.
There we go. All right, now we've proven that we're Dylanologists. So do you see why we spent 10, 15 minutes to prove our Dylan-ness? That like I'm a Groove Seeker and I are Dylan experts, right? Like
total experts. We know everything.
We weren't like that one guy. What's his name? A.G. Weberman, right? He was like hovering over Dylan's trash. You know,
yeah.
I don't know if you remember that guy.
Well, he's a Dylanologist. There's a difference. He's more of an academic.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about this record, 1962, right? March 1962, Bob's first album, right? If you look at this record, he's so baby-faced. He was 20 years old. It's hard to imagine 20-year-olds looking like this today, you know? Like, and if anyone knows this, let me see if I can get it better here. He's got all these covers except for 2 original songs, which are Song to Woody, and the other one is Talkin' New York.
Talkin' New York, yep.
Okay. So very, very baby-faced Bob Dylan, you know. Groove Seeker, what do you have to say about this before we just jump in?
Just some quick facts. I mean, recorded in 61, released in March of 62. You nailed it. It's 2 originals. Bob tried to squeeze in more. Got the boot. Carefully curated covers, from my understanding. Testimonials from people around him at the time when he fell into this opportunity. He really scrounged to find the right covers. And I think we'll probably get into that a little bit. On a couple of the selections he made may have pissed off some of his peers. But yeah, this is to me this could be a controversial discussion on this first record, and it's definitely worth investigating.
Well, I didn't tell you the real reason why we chose this, right? So the real reason why we chose this record, well, I'm going to give my reason. It's because the person who makes my thumbnails, right? Shout out to Vinyl Piper. Well, just
Vinyl Piper.
He was saying that all your other topics are all just clickbait, you know. Why can't you guys talk about, something you're passionate, like music, okay? So shout out to Vinyl Piper, right, for getting us to actually talk about Bob Dylan, 1962, instead of VMP, right?
VMP BK. And we're so passionate about Dylan that this might be the first video in the VC on Dylan's debut album. That's how passionate we are. We could have chose 39 others, but we're here with the debut album for tonight.
All right. Wait. He's creeping around town, I think. Oh, my gosh.
He was in Jersey, I think. He was creeping around right. Springsteen's old house.
Well, that time when Dylan was wearing, like, the hoodie and he looked like the Unabomber, like, not a great look. Yeah, no, that was like...
Yeah. Now, what do you mean?
Oh, jeez. All right, Groove Seeker. Should we just go with the basic?
Let's go with the basics.
Do you like this record?
That's a really loaded question for me.
What?
It's a loaded question for me.
Is this a complete disaster?
I like the record.
Okay.
Okay, I like the record. I wouldn't say it's a complete disaster, but I would tell you if it was a Bob Dylan record, it wasn't a Bob Dylan record, I'd never listen to it. Ever. Wouldn't have crossed my radar. I wouldn't know about it. I have more to say on this, but do you like the record?
You know, I hadn't listened to this record in a few years. And when Piper was like, you know, talk about this record, this is probably the first time I played it, you know, like consecutively. Like it really got on top of me. Do I like this record? Like, I think he was overreaching here. Now, I'm going to get it. Do you want me to get into it? You want me to just go hard on this? Or do you want me to
Go
hold
hard.
it back? Okay.
Go hard.
Now, you and I were not born in the, you know, we did not live in the 60s, right? So to get in that 60s mentality, right, the folk singer was a very popular genre, like folk music, right? And a lot of it rested either on authenticity, right? Or you were a sellout, you know? So sellout meant like you were doing Kingston Trio, you know?
Right.
Or can't think of maybe trying to think of it, the Weavers or something, you know.
Commercial folk.
Right, commercial folk, right? Otherwise, you'd be doing that authentic stuff, you know. So here comes this guy. Like
this little boy.
Right. So if you don't know Bob Dylan, like he came from the rock and roll thing. Like that's what he really loved, right? But then since rock and roll was sort of on the way out, or like, you know, the day the music died when the Big Bopper, Richie Valens, and Buddy Holly bit the dust due to Bad Pilot, you know. Like, man, they met their maker real quickly. So rock and roll was like pushed aside. I mean, that's what we don't think about that, you know. And they, you know, slap down the crooners and the folk music and stuff. So this guy here, Bob, like he sort of changed direction, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of rockin' Bob Dylan, rockin' Bobby Dylan, right? We got Bob Dylan, right? Folk singer, you know.
Well, that's the interesting thing. This is part of my opinion on this album is that, and I don't knock Bob for this because I think if you pay attention to Bob long enough, you kind of see where he was headed and what his mentality was. And I know from what I've read that there was a play here to get a lot of his own music on this record, and it was shot down. But at the same time, Dylan didn't back away from the opportunity. And I saw this as a vessel for him because he's a very driven person. I think it's very clear he's very driven, especially throughout the 60s and then his reincarnations and several eras late in life, right? And so driven that I think he ruffled some feathers with some of the song choices that he made on this record. I think that was pretty deliberate, right? He took on Van Ronk's single. He took House of the Rising Sun, which had been something that Van Ronk was going to record. And I mean, stellar versions of these tunes, don't get me wrong, right? But it wasn't really what Bob wanted to be or become. In fact, I think he denounced some of the folk scene at that time, trying to break away from it. He didn't want to be labeled as this folk hero. So I see it as Bob being very opportunistic. And he wasn't really prepared for this record either. I mean, if you read some of the accounts from that time, he got the deal, got the advance, and he was scrounging for what am I going to put on this record if I'm not going to put my own stuff. Now, one thing I will give him credit on, I think, and again, we weren't there in the 60s, so I have no point of reflection on this except for going back and listening to music at the time. I do think that there are songs on that record that he covers that are out of his range, like vocally and stylistically. But the cool thing about Dylan throughout time is that he makes it his own. And you start to see the beginnings of his signature sound on that record, right? As far as vocal delivery and guitar playing. So there is, not to say that like it's not a great Dylan record, but it has hints of greatness of a Dylan record, especially with the next three that come up.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate and say this to you, Groove Seeker. What does Bob Dylan sound like on this record? What does he sound like? Does he sound like a young man? Or does he sound like a traveled folk singer?
He sounds like a young man impersonating a petri dish of folk vocal styles that he had absorbed pre 2 packs of cigarettes a day.
So,
he's a sponge.
Correct. So now here's my criticism. Look at this photo. Can you imagine this guy singing like a graveled singer?
No.
So that's the thing. He has an affected voice, right? Influenced by some of his folk heroes, whether it be Woody, Cisco, maybe a tinge of Leadbelly or something, that gruffy voice.
I see what you did there. You
see where I'm going with this? So he's a little, I guess the word is like affected a bit fakish on this,
Opportunistic.
Yes. So you're right, opportunistic. Like it's almost similar to maybe like, how dare I say it, Taylor Swift just ripping off Lana Del Rey,
100%.
Yeah,
and and I think this album, if this isn't a Bob Dylan album, it doesn't get remembered. But also, any success driven around this album, in my opinion, was driven from the touring and the residencies leading up and post release of this, where he wasn't doing a lot of these songs live. If you look at the archives, he was doing some of the album, but he had already worked in his own material in a lot of different ways. So I venture to say too that I did this by memory, and then I actually sat down with a list. I don't even put this in my top 20 Dylan records, and I'm not doing anything cute. I'm not even doing anything cute with that top 20. I think it's pretty straightforward, actually. Maybe there's a couple that are debatable towards the back end of that list. It's definitely not top 15.
So very interesting here. VGR, shout out to VGR here. He's saying that Bob is channeling Ramblin' Jack Elliott on this record. What do you think, Groove Seeker? Is he channeling that?
Channeling is a strong word. Maybe a certain homage and influence to Ramblin' Jack. But that's the thing. I don't think it's exclusive to Rambling Jack. I think VGR brings up a good point, but to me, channeling is like direct soul influence on a record. When there's so many combinations there, it gets muddy. It gets muddy real fast on what the soul influence was. I think the one soul influence is the folk scene, and then from there, pieces of that in a petri dish to come up with this sound. And here's the other thing about this Dylan record. If you really dissect his discography, and this could be because it's a bookend, it's the first record he put out. This isn't an era for anything for Bob. This is it's an era in the sense that it's his introduction to the mainstream or success, and it's an era in the sense that he was in that folk scene, but he didn't follow up this record with a similarity on that sound, like the first three records, and then 4, 5, and 6. Like all of those can be grouped together in bands. This one just stands alone. It was just like, hey, I'm here, I'm arriving, I'm coming to you with this sound. This is where it comes from. But after that, it was in my opinion, quickly abandoned.
Chase here. What would he have sounded like with autotune? Who's that guy who does the autotune? What's his name?
T-Pain.
T-Pain, right? He would have been the folk T-Pain. Let's just be honest. I have to agree with this. Joan, and that's also in Chronicles, right? He admits to that Joan Baez being a better interpreter, right? Like Bob here, I believe, was jealous. Like if you read behind the lines of the Chronicles, like his book, his memoir, right? He was in awe of her, jealous of her, He may have had a crush over her.
Well, I think that relationship with Joan at the time was opportunistic, and then on reflection, he probably regrets a lot of how he treated her. I do get that. I don't know if it's jealousy in Chronicles. I feel like it's more of an homage to what he let go and maybe disrespected to giving her flowers. And on your point, right, on her doing great interpretations of so many people's songs. I mean, that Baez Does Dylan record is unbelievable, and Dylan never recorded "Love Is Just a Four-Letter Word." I think after he heard Jones' version, he was like, "There's no way I could." So,
Here we go. Sean makes a point here, not entirely opportunist, right?
yeah. See, this is. I think we're using opportunistic as in kind of a negative sense. I want to clarify what I mean by that. I don't want to speak for Jason, but in my opinion, I think he wanted to get to where he wanted to be by any means necessary. I'm not sure he had the vision of the sound he was going to have or what it was going to become, but I think he fully understood that he had to capitalize on what was given to him by Columbia. And in order to do that, he did have to play by the rules a little bit. And those rules were, you know, all except two of these songs are going to be somebody else's. So there's no doubt the Harry Smith anthology was highly influential and his peers were influential. But even if that anthology is his template, it's not a template for his folk music. It's just a template for his what his approach was going to be.
Correct. More of like he was a sponge, right? So then
Yeah.
he would be taking other influences and making them his own, right? Especially when his songwriting blossomed, right?
But you could even argue on the even in the folk renditions of those songs or his renditions of those folk songs. I mean, I would argue to say you hear a lot of blues influence in that record, as far as the hoarseness of the vocal delivery, some of the guitar playing, not from like a blues perspective, but like the grittiness of it. You know, it was kind of dialed in and pretty grunty at times. I'm not a musician, so I can't really tell you about chord progressions and all that stuff. That's more Jason's bailiwick maybe. But to me, I think there's a heavy blues influence on that early playing. And also, if you read accounts about his recording of that record, it was apparently hell for everybody in the studio, because Bob just had no idea what it was like to record, like microphone position. He didn't really understand like how to correct what he was doing wrong. He was just at there kind of being soulless to a certain extent. Yeah, and Vinyl Dreamscape, like that Harry Smith anthology, I think is a massive influence on him. I just don't know. I just think that he if he didn't have to use that influence on his first record, he would have avoided it. But I think he just had to kind of buy in. That's why those accounts, like I said earlier, of him just figuring out what the hell he was going to do in 2 months when he got the opportunity to record, it's pretty telling. Yeah, signing to Columbia at that age was amazing. It would have been daunting at the same age and time. Hell yeah. I mean, Columbia was a big deal at the time.
Look at this guy. He didn't smoke weed in 62. We don't know that. No idea.
So Jason, this is the other thing I don't know too much about. Was he signed to a multi-label deal? Do you know, when he recorded this record, or was this a one and done, like this is your shot, kid type of thing?
No, so I think at the time, Columbia, right, well, it was John Hammond, right, the legendary producer who discovered Billie Holiday, Bessie Smith, I believe,
Yep.
a couple of others. He was signed to a 5-album, I think, contract, right? So at that time, right, Columbia was, grooming their artists, right? They may not be successful in their first shot, but, maybe they'll hit on with the second or third record, right? So they took more gamble, rather than today, right?
Yeah, so that's also an interesting point. I wonder if he didn't have this deal, does this record help him continue in the way he took off like a rocket ship?
If he didn't have it, then he wouldn't have that Columbia push, right? So I mean, that's
Yeah.
why today we know he's Bob Dylan, right? He's not Bob Smurf, Bob the janitor, right? Janitor folk singer, right? And that's why, I mean, no, nothing against Joan Baez, right? She had great folk albums, but she was no Bob Dylan, you know.
But that's the thing about Joni at that time, and I call her Joni because I know her really well. The thing about Joni at that time too is that, and this is telling about Dylan, and this is strictly a comparison to make this point, but Joni was into the music, but Joni had all other motives. She wanted social change. She wanted a revolution, a peaceful revolution, whatever type of revolution. Bob wasn't looking at it like that. He's like, the folk thing for him wasn't a means to an end of social change. It was like, this is what I'm playing. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I like. But then I'm trying to evolve and do something different. I feel like if Joni wasn't such a remarkable person, but she put that energy into her music instead of sit-ins and rallies and all this other stuff she was doing. Not saying she shouldn't have. I'm just saying if she transferred some of that energy to her music career, I think she's on a different trajectory at the time. And I don't think Bob leaves her in the dust like he did so abruptly. I think that gathers on a little bit.
Had she focused on her songwriting, then her music wouldn't be, as the movie A Complete Unknown said,
like
oil paintings in a dentist's office. Ouch. So shout out to Music in the House, right? He's got a point here, right? So in this college times, Dylan shifted from rock to folk, right? Inspired by Guthrie, blues, country, traditional Americana. And then he also shaped by his local Dinkytown music scene, right? So that's true.
But the other interesting thing about Dylan that he talks about is he was transforming and becoming somebody else. So he also expresses this ability to recreate his own character. So even though he's inspired by that folk scene, I think, from a perspective of, I can become that. So I can become that folk person. I'm now in New York in the heart of it. I really think he saw it as a stepping stone. That doesn't make it disingenuous and doesn't make it that he didn't value the music, but he wasn't going and imitating Chuck Berry to get known, all right? And he wasn't going out there and imitating Son House. He's or Chubby Checker, right? he's imitating a scene that was just revived and exploding.
Yeah, to answer Vinyl Piper, yes, VMP, they did do Blonde on Blonde.
Mono.
Yes, and mono. Yeah, I think it was also like some sort of light brown, beige colored vinyl, right?
Yeah, I can go grab it if you want.
Sure.
I just want to get to Mark Boyd too. Extremely popular at the time, but that popularity sunk out very quickly. And I'm not knocking her career. It's just like it could have gone to another level. That's great.
That's good.
That's fantastic. You're making him sound like Bowie. Yeah, I think
he kind of was.
He kind of is. I mean, just look at the different eras of the albums he put out. He definitely transformed personalities. Right. Actually, when you go to a Dylan concert and they read that famous introduction right over the PA before he goes on stage, you've heard that a million times, right? Columbia recording artist.
Oh, geez.
Oh, it's amazing. It's like a whole explanation of his entire career. I mean, he kind of is like Bowie, maybe just less artsy.
That's funny. I didn't know they were doing it like that. I don't remember that. Extremely handsome. And some people didn't like his voice, right? They did not like. I think Joan, like, if it's true, Joan was like, I can sing that better. She was.
Yes.
Always. I could cover his songs better. Let's see her from Sean, 1998. Joan Baez opened for Wilco. Great show. Baez was really embraced by the Wilco audience. Wow. Now that's transcending, right?
Wow, Boyd with a freaking great comment. I was thinking something like this. Maybe that's why you poached McRonson. Hell yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure Ronson wasn't doing anything. Just kidding. It's free. Glam rock was dead, you know? Jeez. Saturation mono and super more 33. Well, actually, I believe that the Groove Seeker has that MoFi, right?
I have the 45s that came out in mono and stereo. I did not pick up the Super Vinyl 33. I cut myself off. So this is the stereo one, and this is the mono one. I don't. They don't really sound.
I didn't know they did it in mono and stereo.
The monos, all the monos are limited to like 3,000.
That's what you think.
Right. That's what I. Oh, it was promoted by RSD, perhaps. So there might be 30,000. We just don't know. I also, Rojas, have you ever heard this mono box? This is okay too, and obviously the first one's in there.
Yes, I used to own it. There we go. I've owned it twice, and like I eventually had to be like, do not buy this anymore. Do not do this.
Do not do it. Stay away from the red rope licorice.
Right. Gosh. Play Senor.
Senor.
Great story. I saw Dylan Love and Theft tour. I think I've said this story before. My friend and I worked our subs up front, and then I've never seen Dylan ask this. He's like, what should I play next? And my friend, he was like, Senor, I think. And he pointed to us, done deal. And he did play it, which was wild.
Oh, man.
Like, crazy.
That is pretty sick. Drink.
So, yes. Now, this is a good point here, right? Joan Baez's version of Farewell Angelina. So, quick story, side story here. I wasn't necessarily into Dylan until my college days, right? Like, I had a few of the records. They were not something I pulled and like, hey, let's listen to Dylan, you know? Good times. Like, no. I was more into Velvet Underground. And then I met a guy, a friend of mine, Pat, sort of like, he was into Dylan and folk, and like he really knew how to play that song, Farewell Angelina, right? So we sort of like took our influences and traded them, you know what I'm saying? So I let him borrow that Velvet Underground box set, right? And then he lent me all these folk albums, right? And that really basically changed our styles, our musical styles and songwriting at that time. That would have been like the 2000s, late 90s. There we go.
Meaning of the Morning is a good track.
That is a good track. Yes, they do. That's why I kind of prefer it all in mono. Maybe that's a whole nother story, you know?
Oh, man.
But like this thing, like when I was streaming this record, believe it or not, in Apple Music, it's in stereo. And
really?
I found it distracting. I was just like, what the hell? Like his voice on the left, instruments on the right, the guitar and the harmonica, you know? So like, if you are not a fan of like just blowing on that harmonica, like I'm not talking about, you know, Blues Traveler, Sweet, you know? Just talking about blowing this like, you know, like, like it's just going on and I was like, man, a lot of harmonica on this, like crazy. You know?
In one ear.
Yes.
Oh, that's a problem.
Oh man.
So where does this rank for you? He's right over your shoulder. That imitating Babyface is ready to just bash you over the head with his guitar. Where does this rank for you in the Dylan discography?
I think it's better than Triplicate.
That's questionable to me. No, it is better. It is better than Triplicate. Is it better than Saved?
Yes. Oh shit! Is it better than Knocked Out Loaded? That's the real question.
Yes. So it's beaten 3 or 4 records right now.
Yes. Saved. Yeah, I'm not going to reach out to Saved, but
No.
is it better than what's the one before Saved?
Empire Burlesque?
Slow Train
No,
Coming.
Slow Train.
You know, I'd say no.
I would say no.
See?
This is at the bottom half of my list here where I'm coming in. Some of these are coin flips, but I would say Slow Train. Is it better than Portrait?
Oh, man. I don't know. Like, I have a special thing. Before Dylan admitted on Chronicles, right, that he made self-portrait as a joke, right, to confuse people. Like, I had like a soft spot for it because it was that bad, actually. Like, you're like that Alberta song, the one about freeing the horses, you know? It was just like, man, like
Dom makes it. Well, first, this story with Mark Boyd, I would have definitely taken all 20 of them and replaced them with Sunday's reissues. They would never know the difference. Dom, this is a good question from Dom. Is it better than any of the 70s LPs?
wow, no, for me.
No way.
You're saying that, Dom, this one is better than Desire? Like, no
Blood
way,
on the
man.
Tracks. Tough. Vinyl Piper backing Dom up. Yes, for me. Is it better than any of his 70s LPs? Oh no, he's okay. Never mind. I misread that. Damn, the 70s Dylan is good.
Well, I don't know. Like, I know that Mazzy hates when I rip on New Morning. I'm just like, well, when the dogs run free, like right there, just off the bat. So the person who taught me about like vinyl records, like when we would talk about Dylan, he would always sing When the Dogs Run Free, right? And I would just look at him like, man, that's a good way. Like, that's like a good point to say like Dylan sucks, right? Like when you just
wait, but hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. You're talking about a dude who arguably wrote 6 of the greatest albums in a 4-year span before he turned 25. Right? He follows up with in no specific order, John Wesley Harding, New Morning, Planet Waves. Doesn't he deserve to write,
Planet Waves,
publish and record When Dogs Run Free? And don't you owe it to him to listen to it? And that's your citing that the 70s Dylan era was sketchy? The man released Blood on the Tracks in the 70s, dude.
When's the last time you looked at Blood on the Tracks, that cover? Dude was wearing shades. Like, that dude looked like shady. Like it's like, hey, Bob's back. Yeah, but he looks like he's ready to make a deal, you know. And
he was hiding his grief.
Man, jeez. Man. Sean says I prefer Blood and Desire over the first album.
100%.
Dom is now saying New Morning is still pretty up there. Self-portrait I find pretty engaging. I have to say true. I don't know. Like, I just can't help it. That cover of the Boxer on Self-Portrait, terrible, awful, garbage, honestly.
New Morning is good. Nashville Skyline was 69.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it better than the All Covers album, which is...
Is it that one called Dylan, I think?
Yeah.
That's the comp that's like the revenge record. Like Columbia put it out to be like, oh, you left us for Asylum? We're going to release your dirty laundry,
and you'll be back. And you'll be back. There's also, is that soundtrack Contractual Obligation? Is anyone back then? And that doesn't count. It's Pat Carrot, and Billy Kid. We don't see, Dom. This is the thing about Dylan fans. That some things just don't count. It's a soundtrack, technicality. Don't the old Crow Medicine Show had a big hit with Wagon Wheel 35 years or 40 years later. It doesn't count.
They did?
Darius Rucker.
I did not know that.
What? You don't know this? Is it Old Crow Medicine Show? No,
still,
I don't know.
That's not making that album any better. Like, it's not,
but
like, wow.
It doesn't really count. It was Darius Rucker and somebody else had a hit with it. Yeah, Old Crow Medicine Show. That's right. Oh, the Dylan covers album. Yeah. That's what Rojas was just talking about it.
Yes.
Yep.
I think they're both
my bad, Dom.
The same thing.
Give me a good chance to bring up Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, though. When are we never going to get that opportunity? I got a bootleg of the Pat Garrett session's great.
That could be the next bootleg series that nobody asked for. Right, Mark?
Which is also crazy, too, because CBS could have put out that Harrison, Dylan, Charlie Daniels session instead of putting out the covers record. Instead, that had to be unveiled years later.
Yeah, I don't know that, so I guess I'll look it up against my better judgment.
Oh, you can only look it up if you look up Old Crow Medicine Show also doing. Oh, I would argue the Old Crow Medicine Show version was probably bigger than the Darius Rucker one.
So I mean, Sean, like, that is true, but I think like in hindsight, right? We look back, right? Because Dylan was competing with his peers or that older guard, right? Which I think I said this earlier, maybe not, like Theodore Bickel, Bob Gibson,
Dave Van Ronk.
Dave Van Ronk, right? That old guard.
And he didn't want to compete with them.
Well, I mean, when Dave Van Ronk like accused Dylan of stealing House of the Rising Sun,
yeah,
right, from him, right? And Dylan's, if you watch that, what is that? No Direction Home.
No Direction Home, yeah.
Right. The outtake is like, Dylan was like, "Oops," like, like, what the? It's not, man.
Every folk, yeah. Every acoustic songwriter at the bar covers it too. Darius Rucker is a really imaginary figure.
I know, that's hilarious.
I thought his name was Hootie this whole time.
Hootie. Good Lord,
unless Dom comes in hot, he's like, there's a Icelandish, psych pop band that does a stellar cover. That would be fucking great. He was also competing. Was he though? Like, was he competing with Peter, Paul, and Mary? I don't know.
The thing is, like, this is like, I don't know if he was competing, Mark, but like that was the whole thing. Like the commercial folk, like that was never gonna die, right? Like that did not die.
And didn't Grossman like form Peter, Paul, and Mary as another avenue to commercialize folk? Like, I don't know if they were really in competition.
Well, the movie talks about that, the A Complete Unknown, right? They talk about how Albert Grossman, being the manager that he was, he was basically, taking Dylan's songs and having other people cover them, right? So they could get the publishing money, right?
Right. He was triple dipping.
Yes.
Which is kind of brilliant, actually, even though he's a scumbag.
Correct. Man. We talked about this for a good 45, 50 minutes. Bob Dylan.
We didn't even get started, I thought. I still have a bunch of notes here. There's nothing more to say?
Well, what would you like to say more about this? I think Vinyl Piper wants me to play it. We'll play it at the end because I know YouTube is watching. They're kind of feeling it, right?
What else do I want to say about this record? My listening habits with this record, I haven't gone before the past couple of days when we decided we were going to do this. I haven't gone back for a fresh listen in a long time. And when I do listen to this record, every couple of years or so, I'll go chronologically through Dylan's catalog. Typically when a new bootleg series comes out or a new album comes out, I'll start from the beginning for a couple of weeks and just hit it hard. And that's really, I always listen to it in the context of everything else. Maybe that's why I'm a little jaded about it, or not as high about it as I should be.
BJ Thomas, man.
Come on, man.
What did he do? Raindrops
Keep falling on my head.
And then he had that other one that I hooked on a feeling, right? So let me show off for Vinyl Piper here. Vinyl Piper, this is the 6i, right?
Mono.
Let's not joke around here. CL 1779, right?
In a few years, all shaky was reading that. Hey, you know what? That's an interesting topic too.
Well, everyone kept on thinking that. What was it? Everyone kept. I think it's even in Dylan's chronicles, right? Like everyone thought that he wrote "Old Man," right? I think it was that one. Everyone thought he wrote that, and then he was like, "No, man, I didn't write that."
That's one. I think from the start, I think that's one peer that Dylan never challenged. And they always have mutual respect for one another. You don't find that a lot in Dylan's relationships with musicians. Him and Neil never really had any kind of falling out from what I know.
Yeah, they never collaborated. I think they were like, it was like a wise move not to do that.
Yeah. Man, we could do a whole move. Yeah. We could do a whole stream on Neil.
Right. I would pick the Trans album just for fun.
I would pick Are You Passionate? What is my favorite Dylan bootleg box set? Oh.
I would have to say, this is actually a surprise. That religious one, that one's on fire. Like,
okay.
I think it's called Trouble No More. That one.
Yeah, Trouble No More.
It's a secret. That one's such a secret because I think some of it's like sessions, outtakes, but then the rest is like live, and it's like on fire. Like it
has a documentary with it too on the CD version. Yeah, that is a good. I kind of like Telltale Signs.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Might be my favorite, but like then I say that, but how do you just throw out the Cutting Edge? How do you throw out the Rolling Thunder Review? The thing. Okay, so this is a good question by Vinyl Dreamscape, because for a long time it was volumes 4 and 5. It was the 66 show and Rolling Thunder Review. Like that was, to me, primo Dylan. But then they released those CD box sets with the entire tour. So those kind of take a back seat now, those compilations, because I could just pull up any show out of that box set. So that's why the Telltale Signs kind of takes the cake for me right now. I also like what's the other one? Oh, I also like the Whitmark demos a lot too.
Look at this. Dom here. He's now gonna play Dylan.
So Dom, do you know what album you're gonna play?
His workmates are gonna like basically, tar and feather Dom.
Dom's like, I was at the VC Social Club last night and these guys were talking about Dylan, and now that's where I'm at today. Great.
I think I've said this, well, maybe it was in the chat. Yeah, I did not say this, but I'll say this during the stream. When I was like learning coding, right, programming in college, my one of my classmates used to tease me when I would get stuck. He would be like, "Don't worry," as Dylan once said, "the answer is blowing in the wind.
In the wind. Tokyo Record Style's in the house too.
Welcome, Brian.
No, see that. So Mark says cutting edge because I'm a basic bitch. It's hard to deny that. I actually have that massive cutting, complete cutting edge box set. I sent you those files, right, Rojas?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an undertaking. That'll put you. It's every take of every song in chronological order. It's absolutely mesmerizing. I wonder if Tokyo Record Style has any comments on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame selections. I promised Jason I wouldn't mention the band name on air, but maybe drop us a comment, Brian. So I always talk about this, and I talk about the same reverence with the Beatles, although I think Dylan has more reverence for me in this. Can you imagine being 24, 25 and making arguably the three best records of the 60s in a year and a half?
But I don't think they were thinking that way. Like
I know they weren't. No, I know that.
Not.
Well, but if you think about it, he's going to look back on that and it's like, wow. I like the Ginger Sticks.
Records.
Oh, they're great.
He was a great folkie. Welcome, Mr. Cruz.
What would be the word for like a fake folkie? A folkie?
A fake folkie. Jeez. Yeah.
An opportunist folkie?
That's right. That's more like it. You know?
Just look at the way he just crushed Pete Seeger's soul, man. He ripped the revolution right out of his hands. And
jeez, because he wanted to do some of that rock and roll, that devil's music, you know.
Folksy.
Let me shout out to Paul here, Breakfast King. He met up with the Wolfman Nathaniel Mars over the weekend. Hopefully, Paul, you got some good stuff. You know, let us know what you got in the comments. Hopefully, it didn't break your bank. Hopefully, it took you to the cheapos and Extreme Noise up in Minneapolis. Like, that's the hush-hush secret, you know?
I have a question for the Breakfast King. Do you have that compilation of the new Basement tapes with, I know Marcus Mumford's on it with Elvis Costello, the guy from the Dawes, Rihanna Giddens, Jim James of My Morning Jacket. I even think Johnny Depp's on a couple of tracks. I don't know if you ever heard that.
Oh, yeah. Went to Extreme Noise. He says absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Nice. Guess what? Me neither. I think it's Travis. Tokyo Record Style talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame selections. I think it's both a travesty, a farce. It's so poetic and awesome too. Spoken like a true fan. You see the symbolism in this. They'll allow the hot dog in the atrium, is that how you say that? But not the band in the Hall of Fame. Love how hard they got snubbed. Too much, just perfect. Yes. And the question is, what covers will they bust out with lyrical references to the snub? That's going to be the message to follow as we go into summer tour, or ending spring tour.
Well, no one ever questioned the mythology. That's the thing, right? When he was going to cut the electric cords or the axe at Newport 65, you know?
I'm not. That's like something I wouldn't even think about. It's just a matter of, he broke Seeger's heart, not from not plugging in. He broke Seeger's heart from not carrying on what he thought Bob should be doing. But like true Bob fashion, no one tells Bob what to do.
But it would have been funny if future Bob Seger arrived in a DeLorean, told past Bob Seger, don't cut that cord. It's going to break your heart, but just don't cut it, right? Think of Woody. What would Woody do? Oh, he actually knows the record.
Yeah, there's a documentary about it too. What What about Brian? Brian has a strong take. He's a little bit late, but I think we can readdress it. Oh, it's gone.
That'd be cool.
I lost the comment. I can't highlight the comments tonight.
Well, just be careful of that other. That's not the.
Oh, is that what it was? Oh, got it. Missed the no. They will be the next Chubby Checker. They'll be denied for the next few decades. Sorry, Tokyo Groove.
Now the thing is,
It's okay.
Chubby Checker, right? Like people would only know him for his cover of the Twist, right? He did not.
You had to
write
throw
that.
cover in there. You had to throw cover
Ballard
in there.
wrote it, right?
Right.
But like you'd be hoping that he'd go there because of his great psychedelic record, right? The songs like "Stoned in the Bathroom," classic.
I figured he'd be in the Dance Hall of Fame, maybe Dance Moves Hall of Fame.
Man, tough. I think we killed this for an hour. Did we get through everything that you wanted to talk about, or no?
I did. I just closing comments on Dylan's debut album. For me, something, if it wasn't a Bob Dylan record, I probably would have never investigated. And I respect its greatness in the context of the Dylan discography and the historical perspective, but I don't hold it in high regard to the rest of his catalog, keeping in mind that some of Dylan's best albums, even the worst of the best, one could only hope to record. So that's my final take, mic drop on the Dylan debut record.
Well, okay, to paraphrase it, I'll just say, nice try, Dylan. Nice try. You know? And I think that's it. I want to thank everyone for showing up in the chat, and I'll look at the Wolfman here. Hey, what's the topic? We talked about Joan Baez for a whole hour. There you go. We'll read some comment. Yeah, I slop over taking thumbnails, even the mayor.
Wow.
Hot take. Oh, really? So you got the bugs. That's good. The one on, was it Broadcast? Is that what the label was? Or Broadside? Okay. All right. Yes, thank you. We're going to end with some Bob. We'll end with Bob.
This one, this goes out to Vinyl Piper, yeah.
Yes, since he thinks we don't play any music. From 1962.
Well, I don't know why I love you like I do. Nobody in the world can get along with you. You got the ways of a devil sleeping in a lion's den. I come home last night, you wouldn't even let me in. Well, sometimes you're as sweet as anybody wanna be. When you get a crescent ocean jumping all over me. When you give me the blues, I guess you're satisfied. And you give me the blues, I wanna lay down and die. I helped you when you had no shoes on your feet, pretty mama. I helped you when you had no food to eat. You're the kind of woman I just don't understand. You're taking all my money and give it to another man. Well, you the kind of woman makes a man lose his brains. You're the kind of woman.
Capo's on the fourth
drives a
fret.
man insane. You give me the blues, I guess you're satisfied.
Capos are
You give me
like
the
oil
blues, I wanna
paintings
lay
in
down and
the
die. Well, you give me the blues, I wanna lay down and die.
Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.
See you guys next week. Peace.